Welcome to episode 2 of the World of Screens podcast. On today's show, we have reviews for Dangerous Animals, Materialists, and How to Train Your Dragon. It's a stacked review show today. We'll be looking at the latest weekend box office results for Australia, and we're going to discuss the current state of live action remakes. To do that, once again, joining me, Mr. Peter Gray from the AE Review. Hey, Pete. How's
Hey,
it
Nick.
going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a busy week. We've
It
watched
has been.
lots of movies.
Yeah.
Where
Like literally before we turned this on, we were just like, how crazy is this week?
how crazy is this weekend going to be
This
as well?
weekend
We've
is,
got three
yeah,
junkets coming up. We've got screeners coming through. We've got reviews
well,
to write.
hopefully screen is coming
Hopefully,
through.
screeners coming through for some very cool stuff.
Yeah.
But a bit, we wouldn't want it to be any other way. We love
No,
busy when it comes to watching films,
we do.
and we love busy when it comes to talking about the movies that have come out in the Australian cinemas this week, which, of course, as we
Mm.
said at the top, Dangerous Animals being one of them. And I think we should maybe kick off there.
Tell me that ain't the greatest show on earth. Every fisherman loves a good fight. The thing the fish doesn't realize is that once that hook sets, no matter how hard she runs,
Help! I need help.
she's already in the boat.
When Zephyr, a savvy and free-spirited surfer, is abducted by a shark-obsessed serial killer and held captive on his boat, she must figure out how to escape before he carries out a ritualistic feeding to the sharks below. So this is a survival horror film from director Sean Byrne and a screenplay from Nick Leopard. This is his first screenplay. His second will be under the direction of Osgood Perkins this year with Keeper, which excites me very, very much after watching this film. And it stars Hassie Harrison, Josh Houston, Rob Carlton, Ellen Newham, Liam Grenke, and Jai Courtney. Australian survival horror, Pete. We saw this a couple of weeks ago.
It's actually been a while since we
It might
saw
have been over a month, actually, because
Yeah.
we were both lucky enough to talk to Sean Byrne and Liam
Yes.
Grenke for the
Yes.
film. And you spoke to Mr. Jai Courtney, Mr.
I spoke to Mr.
Unhinged
Jai Courtney.
himself.
It's funny hearing the description of this movie
Yes.
because when you hear it, I wouldn't blame you if you sort of just go, that sounds stupid. Because
Totally.
it does have an air of like how like ironically jumping the shark, like how many things can you possibly mash together?
Yes.
And I think if you just heard the premise, I understand if you're a little bit like a
Some
little bit weary.
hesitation.
But then when you put that it's Sean Byrne,
Hmm.
that should kind of immediately put you at a little bit of an ease because he is direct. I mean, he's only directed two horror
Yeah,
movies
this is his third
prior.
film
This is his third.
in 16 years.
But those two horror movies are incredible. And if you do
Yes.
not know, The Loved Ones from 2009 and The Devil's Candy from 2015. So this is his first film in 10 years. Um, he makes genuinely great horror film.
The,
Like,
all
like
three of these
un
movies get under your skin.
yes, like they are unsettling but in like the best way
Totally.
possible. And I think
It's a highest compliment for horror.
yeah, and I think possibly because this is not a Sean Burns script,
Sure.
this is probably the most, I'm going to say like accessible, the most
Yep.
popcorn entertainment. Because like Loved Ones and Devil's Candy, they're full on. I think
100%.
they're a lot more disturbing. Not to say Dangerous Animals isn't disturbing, because the idea behind Dangerous Animals is
Yeah.
really, really messed up. And
It's
Jai Courtney is like
unhinged.
unhinged.
Truly
But this
unhinged.
one has a lot more, I think this one has a lot more of a sense of fun to it.
There is a levity to this film that the
Yeah.
other two don't have.
Yeah.
Because disturbing is the best way to describe Loved Ones and Devil's Candy. They're just really disturbing movies.
Then
And
they're not movies that you watch to like, oh, I'll put on a horror movie just for like something fun to escape. Like this is these are like
Dangerous Animals is because it has a lot of fun with this ridiculous premise that it is a serial killer whose weapon is sharks. Like
yeah.
that's crazy. And it leans into it because Jai Courtney leans into it. He is so fun in this movie as an
Yeah.
unhinged serial killer who
Yeah.
films all his kills on film, like
Mm.
on videotapes, has his little meta collection there. He's a beer drinking, He's mild-mannered. He's just completely devoted to the unhinged nature of the film. And then when you get these like the first two kills of the film, or the first kill of the film at least, this backpacker sort of coming onto the boat and just how quick it happens. He kills someone 5 minutes after singing Baby Shark. Like this is the movie you're watching, and he does it so well.
Yeah. I like that, you know, Jai Courtney, and it leads into the kind of the greatest villains that we've seen on screen who have this charisma to them that you
Yes.
understand why people would put themselves in their presence. Like,
Yes, totally.
you know, like obviously like from the opening few minutes, there are a few things that Jai Courtney says and does that you're a little bit like, oh,
It's off-putting.
I don't know. But he has that like Aussie larrikin charm that you're just like, oh, he's just, you know,
He's a guy who lives on a boat off the coast.
As he said, he's a salty sea dog. You know, you just want to have a beer
So
with him.
good.
But
Salty sea dog.
but maybe he'll kill you, but you're like, but hey, you're gonna be entertained right up to the point.
Right up until the
What do
time
you
that you get fed to the
Right,
sharks.
right when he stabs you in the fucking throat without any warning.
I remember we were sitting next to each other for that screening,
Yeah.
and our reaction, we were hooked. Like that was like we were enjoying this first like 10, 15 minutes. But that to me was like, oh, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Because
with this movie.
it's like it's killing someone. It's the few seconds of the realization of what's happened.
Yep.
It's Jai Courtney turning to the camera and going, "Welcome aboard," and then credits, and you're just like,
titles,
"Oh,
yeah.
I am
with
absolutely
dancing with myself." They're
Dancing with
blasting
myself.
so good. So.
Like it. This film knows that it's like it knows that it's leaning in on the ridiculousness, but I think talking to Sean and Liam and Jai, like you realize like how much care has been put into this and how deep they're going with the psychological mentality of like what drives someone to do this. And like, you know, Jai and Sean both sort of talked about like his character Tucker. It's like it's probably someone who like hasn't been loved and is trying to find love in a really weird way, and he like respects the ocean so much and doesn't like what people are doing to it, and it's like it kind of justifies everything he's doing. Doesn't mean we agree with it in any way, but you understand his mentality, and that makes you just go, okay, like I'm on board with this even more because he's crazy, but he's got a reason for doing it, and you can't, you know, like we are really doing terrible things to the ocean. So you know,
he attacks the people who he thinks are responsible. He's trying to get rid of the backpackers, the tourists. He has this mentality that it's kind of all their fault. The surfers as well. He's you know, which is where Zephyr comes into play, played by Hassie Harrison, who is like the heart of the film. She's the core of the film. She is, you know, and I like that she's not a clean cut heroine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's got a troubled past. She's running away from stuff. But she uses like this determination and grit to kind of be Tucker's match. And that's where like a lot of the fun of the film happens, is it's not just Tucker being completely unhinged. It's Zephyr giving him a run for his money for a lot of the second act of the film.
And I like that Tucker is like sees the fight in her, and he's just like, yeah, let's go. And funny, Sean was saying like it's interesting what people take as being the most dangerous animal, because you're like, is it the shark? Is it Tucker? Or is it Zephyr? Because she's like, but she's a dangerous animal in terms of being like so determined to get out of her situation.
Kicks in,
and what I really liked was that she does all the things, like she does really smart things. Totally. Yes, they don't always work because Tucker like catches up to her, or he like, you know, gets her at the last minute. But the things that she does to escape are like they're never the kind of things that you just go, well, that's stupid. Don't do that. Like you watch her just going, yeah, like this will be it. This is how she gets out.
It manages to avoid the horror tropes then where all of a sudden like she's thwarted or she does escape because something stupid. because you're always on the edge of your seat. But
Yeah.
I felt like every time that her and that Zephyr and Tucker like got into a scuffle, basically, it
Mm.
felt believable within the film.
Yeah.
And that's where like a lot of the violence comes into play too, because it's not that it's not violent for its first like hour. It's about like 95 minutes or something. For its
Yeah.
first hour, it's very tense. It gets under your skin. There's that uncomfortable nature, but then we have that survival instinct aspect with Zephyr. That last half hour, when there's the true like face-to-face battle begins,
Yeah.
that's when it starts getting like, oh, this is the horror film that is rated MA-15 for a
Yeah. Well,
reason.
like, because like even like after the first that first death scene,
Yeah.
even the first major set piece where
Mm.
one of the unfortunate backpackers gets eaten by a shark,
Yes.
that scene is actually it's not that graphic. It's
No.
just it's terrifying because the actress is
Very convincing.
screaming, and
Very convincing.
it is a visceral like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable listening to her fighting for her
But
life.
that's that
But
tension thing again, right? Because
yeah,
we've seen in movies and maybe in documentaries what sharks can do. So it's
yeah,
almost like our own minds are going
of
like, oh,
going
this is fucked
like
up.
and
Like,
like
yeah, yeah.
what's happening to her under the water,
What are we not
basically.
seeing? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then yeah, towards the end of the film, it sort of amps up a bit more, and there's like one character who gets we'll just say gets something lodged in their head,
Oh,
and then kind of falls,
the
and it's
stumble and the fall. Yeah, yeah.
it's great. But like
There's
this is
something with a thumb that I think many people
oh
will react
yes,
very well to.
yeah, possibly the most
Graphic
violent thing
moment of the film.
in the
Yeah,
film is to
yeah,
do with someone doing something to themselves.
yeah. But it's all those things we kind of expect from a Sean Byrne film at the same
Mm,
time. Like they're especially like the loved ones, where we have the infamous drill sequence. He always has this like one thing
mm,
that is just so gross to watch,
yeah,
and I'm glad that we kind of kept that going on. And it's crazy that it's his third film in
yeah,
16 years.
yeah,
Like I love it.
and
Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
Like if he keeps making good stuff, take as long as
yeah.
you want to do it. But
Although I do know that Nick and I both were like, can you not wait 10 years for the next
I think it came up in the interview as well. I was like,
like
just continue making good
like
stuff. Just
like
wait.
worth the wait,
Worth the wait.
absolutely.
Absolutely worth the wait.
But I don't want it to be 2035
No.
when we get our next Sean Byrne movie
And we're
because
all old and decrepit talking to him.
I
being
just
like,
realized how old I'll be in 10 years' time and was like,
yeah.
God damn.
Well, hopefully we don't have to wait that long. I think
No.
this is definitely one for horror fans, but it is, like I said, it's his most accessible movie, and I think it's
Yeah.
one definitely with a crowd that would be a lot of fun to
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
But like horror fans, but then fans of like action movies, fans of thrillers, serial killer movie thrillers,
Totally. It's
people
got
that like
little mix and
yeah,
match of
people
all
that
of
like
it, yeah.
Australian movies, people that like black comedy
Oh, this is
because
very, very dark. Yeah, the comedy.
and it just also reaffirms how bloody good Jai Courtney is.
He has
And
a lot of fun in this movie.
these are the like I think when he is able to do like these kind of characters, like that's where he like really thrives, I think. Yeah.
Totally. Well, I'd be interested to see also being a horror film how it plays at the box office, because as we
Mm.
spoke about with the Australian box office last week, we had Bring Her Back and Final Destination Bloodlines in there. So we'll be interested
Yeah.
to see how Dangerous Animals goes this week. But let's talk about last week at the Australian box office, thanks
Yeah.
to Numero Box Office. And while we're on the horror train, speaking of, with barely a drop, because I think it was $800,000 last week, coming in at 740,000, Bring Her Back.
At number 5?
At number 5,
That's
not a huge drop.
awesome.
Not a huge drop. So I think the word
great.
of mouth came through.
Word of mouth.
It's that means it's made up $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion. Yes, $1.5 million at the Australian box office. So for
Nice.
this, and a co-Australian production, the Philippine Brothers. We both spoke about how much we love this film. It's great to see it's still in there at number 5.
Because horror traditionally does massive drops. Like horror can be very front loaded, and I think seeing something like Bring It Back stay
Hold,
really takes me back to like 10 20 years ago when something like I was just thinking like The Ring. Like The Ring was one of those movies that like kind of opened mid, and then word of mouth really like kept it going. So it's like it's really comforting to know that movies aren't necessarily dying
No,
by opening weekend. Like
no.
it's good to see. So
Good to see you. And no one deserves it more than Danny and Michael Philippou for sure.
absolutely.
Coming in at number four, new movie for the week at $2.5 million, Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Ballerina.
Okay.
Not a terrible
That's a good opening weekend.
but number four
For
too.
number
Like that's
four.
let's just say it was a healthy weekend at the box office for the Australian film industry.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
obviously it was coming through that it sort of has underperformed in the States a little bit. I think there was an expectation of that. Opening four in Australia is not amazing, but 2.5 million isn't bad.
Yeah, it's funny seeing the all the conversation
Yeah.
about like how it's under, and I'm like, look, obviously compared to John Wick,
Mm.
yes,
Yes,
okay, this
totally.
is opened very much under, like,
Hmm.
but uh, at the same time, I'm like, worldwide, it made $50 million. This
Yeah.
movie probably has, I think it's like a $90 million budget.
It'll be
Like, I
fine.
don't think 50 million on overall is terrible.
Terrible.
I think second, I think this coming weekend
Yes.
will be telling to see what it's like. But, I think
And I think
female
people
led,
have, yeah, responded to it well. Like audiences have really
the
enjoyed it.
like the
Critics
critic
have.
score is
Yep.
really good.
Yep.
I think, a female led action movie, like I don't think we should write this one off
I
just
agree.
yet. And hearing that it's two and a half at number four is
Yeah.
that's great because that makes me just go, what the hell did one, two, and three
Well, it's
earn?
it's kind of hot on the tails of number three with 2.9 million Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So still holding on at
Wow,
number three, but almost a $3 million weekend for
that is
Mission Impossible.
holding.
But
That is
also, it's
holding
last
well.
weekend in premium
I'm
formats because
yeah,
obviously How to Train Your Dragon will be taking that premium format this week. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, unreal.
No,
Almost 3 million is great.
makes me very, very happy.
Very happy as
Yeah.
Tom smiles in the background behind you there.
Hi,
Uh,
Tom.
but it was a very family orientated weekend, obviously. Coming at
Mm.
number two, $4 million. Karate Kid Legends did
Wow.
really, really well at the box
Wow.
office. Deservedly
Well,
so.
I
90-minute
mean,
family film from a franchise that's beloved with two huge stars returning in Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. Like, yeah, come on.
we did say that it was a rarity for a family to have a movie that
Totally.
everybody could go to. It wasn't just like parents being dragged along with their kids. It was parents probably got some enjoyment
You
out
think
of
about
this.
all the dads who were like kids in the 80s who grew up the Karate Kid being like, I'm going to
Yeah,
show my kids
my
the
kid,
Karate Kid
yeah.
now.
And
Yeah,
now
yeah.
and then to kids, it's like this is now my
This is their Karate
Karate
Kid.
Kid. And
Yeah, which
like,
is
oh,
cool.
in 40 years' time, Dad, I'll be able to show my kid. Yeah. So, and Ralph Macchio will probably look the same in 40 years because that man
Probably.
is not
It'll be the
aging.
100-year-old Mr. Miyagi fucking parallel. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that is great.
I do wonder if Jackie Chan's a pull too. I wonder if people will are still
I
going
think
to
I
who they
yeah,
consider movie stars.
it'll be. You know what? I think now we just need Jackie to get on that Rush Hour 4 train.
Literally.
I
Him
think.
and Chris just banging
Yeah.
out before they get too old.
Yeah.
And we predicted it correctly. And as I was listening to the last week's episode again, this shouldn't be a shock because you said it would be interesting to see what the drop is, and it was not much of a drop at all.
Yeah.
$5.8 million. Lilo and Stitch. It has
Wow.
crossed 10 million. I think it's crossed $11 million now at the Australian box
I mean,
office in 2 weeks.
it's 800 million worldwide now. The billion seems like
Inevitable.
inevitable. That is
Crazy.
wild.
It's gotten there quicker than Minecraft did, which I thought Minecraft was going to be the $1 billion, as we spoke about last
Yeah,
week.
but no, it
Lilo and
looks like
Stitch is a
it
true
looks like
$1 billion
it's
film.
got to peter out with $960 million or something.
No,
But
I think it's got legs and as well because like it's going up. Obviously, it's going up against How to Train Your Dragon this weekend.
mm,
But I think as we'll talk about later on, that's probably going to be maybe a little too intense for these younger audiences as well.
I think so.
So
Yeah,
Lilo and
yeah,
Stitch is still that young child counter
yeah,
programming that will,
yeah.
it could cross a billion this weekend. It'd be
I
very
mean,
interesting.
we'll see. We will see. It'll be, yeah. I think American box. It'll be interesting to see where How to Train Your Dragon
Kind of sits.
fits
Yeah.
with Lilo and Stitch and where they play opposite each other because yeah, they are going for slightly different audiences, but overall the family dynamic
Totally.
is there for people. So yeah, we'll see.
coming into school holidays, we'll be talking about a lot of kids' films
Very true. Yes.
in this box office numbers. But that's Australian box office. Thank you to Numero for supplying the
Wow.
data for that one there. As we said at the top, this is a review heavy episode. So let's go into the next review with Celine Song's second film, Materialists.
You can do better than me.
My instincts are usually right. Hi.
Wow. You know how to do the math, don't you? You are what we call a unicorn. An impossible fantasy. How much is this apartment?
12 million.
Not gonna marry him, are you?
Why not?
Because he's good looking and rich.
A young, ambitious New York City matchmaker finds herself torn between the perfect match and her imperfect ex. This is an American romantic comedy. We will discuss the validity of that statement soon. Written and directed by Celine Song. This is her second film following the incredible Past Lives, and it stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
We saw Past Lives together at Sydney Film Festival.
We
a few
did.
years ago, and we loved it.
We loved it.
We both spoke to Celine Song for Past Lives.
We did.
She was
We
great.
were in when we saw Past Lives, that cinema was packed out.
Yeah, sold out State Theatre.
I'm pretty sure I was shedding a few tears.
I think there was a couple there.
That last
The
scene
last scene is perfect.
Perfect. But yeah,
But
it was
so
funny.
mature. It really tapped into like a really authentic, mature look at like not even just relationships, but just like how people see love and how people see connection and stuff. It just felt very authentic, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Not Hollywoodized, I guess, is the comparison to make to that.
Yeah, well, and which is funny, so it's because I think from the outside, Materialist looks like a very Hollywoodized romantic comedy.
It's been sold that way by Sony very well.
And it makes sense that you sell Materialist as a romantic comedy because you have three very attractive, very charming movie stars.
100%.
I think because we knew it was Celine Song, I think we both went into this going, this will not be a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It'll be romantic. I'm sure it'll have comedic moments.
Which it does.
But
Yep.
it does. But I was like, I think
If
we were more prepared for what than I think the general
public will be.
Because I think a lot of people will go to this going, oh my God, who's she going to choose? It'll be like a wacky, and it's like, no.
It doesn't follow the generic structure, the tropes, or like the hijinks that you may expect from a romantic comedy.
I mean,
it's not
from
this fantastified. It's not this fantasy style of love that does come through in fiction, not even just film, but just fiction in general. This is a very just like, again, very authentic, very mature deconstruction of if is connection an algorithm or a feeling. That's kind of what I took away from the film. Like, she's Dakota Johnson plays a matchmaker who works for a very elite service, and all she's basically doing is trying to get really rich people the attractive soulmate that they want. And when you say soulmate, you put it in quotation marks, so it's just someone to hang out with, basically, someone to like spend time with.
Yeah.
And then the dilemma pops up when there's a perfect match, again in quotations, with Pedro Pascal, and then her ex Chris Evans, who there is still some feelings there for, sort of like she plays the conflict between I connect people this way, so I should do it this way, or should I follow my heart and feelings? And it's a really fun breakdown of that.
Yeah, no, it looks at romance and dating in a very like transactional way.
Marriage is a business deal, right? That's like the quote from the film.
Yeah. And I really appreciated how, because it's dealing with people in their 30s and 40s who, if they're still dating, it's like, they're the ages where they go, well, yeah, the people I'm dating, I want it to be for a marriage.
Yeah.
And you almost have to go, what's important in this situation? Like, yes, obviously you need to love them in some capacity.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is looking at it as, well, are you going to be financially taken care of? Are you going to feel like it's all that sort of stuff? And then there's
Johnson, she calls it the boxes. She's checking the boxes.
Checking the boxes. And there's
taking away all feeling.
There's a really great moment that kind of is very telling of how some people look at the relationships where she's trying to talk, like the bride is having like a freak out moment,
Yes, yeah.
and she talks to her and is like,
It's a great scene.
and she's like, what is going on in your head? Like, tell me. And she's like,
Mm.
I've matched that many people. I've heard that many reasons. What you're going to tell me, honestly, it's not going to shock me. And,
Yeah.
she's like,
She's
he
good at
makes
what she
me feel,
does.
and she's like, he makes me feel valuable because being with him
Makes my sister
makes my
jealous.
sister jealous. And then Dakota Johnson's like, okay, yeah, so he makes her jealous,
It
which
makes you
means
feel worth
it makes you feel
worth.
worthy.
Yeah.
So he gives you worth, and you're just like, no wonder she's a matchmaker.
She's a great salesman.
Um,
She's a
but
great salesman.
the other thing is though, there are there are side plots that go very dark and
Yes. One in particular, yeah.
could be quite triggering to people, and it really leans into just how, as much as you have someone checking boxes and vetting,
Yeah.
safety
I
isn't always going to be like
no,
you're
I
you're
think
still you're still you still have to you still have to trust the person. As
sure.
much as someone has gone,
Yeah, yeah.
he's rich, he's tall, blah blah blah, you still ultimately have to go,
There's
okay,
only face value there, right? Like you can only
exactly.
take what you can
And
take at face
I
value.
think that side plot definitely threw a lot of
A
people
lot of
for a
people, oh,
loop
totally.
because
And to
it's
me,
not it's
it's
not in like the advertisements at
no,
all. It really sombers
the
the
film.
film and like makes you realize like
I
the
gotta
seriousness of dating.
I gotta praise Celine's song for that too, because it obviously feels like a commentary on the idea of the day current dating for especially for women and the
Yeah,
danger that they can be in as well. But I appreciate that she didn't just put it in there as a statement. She kind of
yeah,
works it into the development of Dakota Johnson's character too, because
yeah.
that's her turning point as well. Despite it doesn't take away from the fact that what happens is horrible and
Mm,
truly awful, but the way she works that into a character arc is incredible. I think Celine Song's character work is amazing, and we saw that in past lives too. The way she
yeah.
fleshes out characters and makes them really three-dimensional, have a lot of substance to them is great. I could also listen to Celine Song dialogue all day long. It
Oh,
is there is a poetry to the way she writes that
it's
is
so good.
so it's intelligent, but I also don't want people to be turned off by like, oh, am I? Because this is me sometimes. Like, am I going to be too dumb to know what's going on? She just doesn't like she people talk in the way people talk, but it's very smart and it's
Mm,
very well written, and there's no wasted word in this
yeah.
as well. I think Dakota Johnson was perfect.
Oh,
It's like the best casting for that role, but she's been utilized in the best way possible.
yeah.
I think Chris Evans is really, really good. There was some moments early on where I was like, oh, you are just Chris Evans. But as the film goes on and he gets probably a bit more meat in his role,
Yeah.
I liked him a lot. Pedro, I thought was fine. I I know, and this is not me. I'm not an anti Pedro Pascal person, but I feel like maybe I've just eaten too well because he's so good as Joel in The Last of Us, where I'm like,
Right.
I've seen you do really great stuff. In The Materialists, I was like, yeah, he's fine. Like I thought he was good for what that role needed to be, but not necessarily like apart from one scene, I guess, like where there was some real like vulnerability to his character.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think
Which is a
like
great reveal as well.
it is. Yeah. I think because Celine Song has like experience as a matchmaker, like
Yes, true. I forgot about that. Yeah,
that I think that makes you go, oh, like what's happening in this film is probably
quite authentic.
very true to life. There's probably a lot of stories that have been like slightly altered or weaved in. So it makes everything that these characters are saying and doing resonate
Very
that
much,
much
yeah.
stronger. And
Oh,
yeah, like it is
there was an argument scene. There's a flashback argument scene in the film
in the
where
car.
in the car, and I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, I've had that conversation before.
Yeah.
Like, and not to that extreme, but I was like,
Extreme.
oh fuck, like I've had this conversation. It's
Yeah.
very resonant. Yeah.
I and like that I love how like you have these moments where you see Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans, what their relationship was, and you just saw kind of how
Yes.
volatile it was, and you
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
think, oh, maybe they're better off not together. And on paper, Pedro Pascal is like
It's
so
perfect, right?
perfect.
He is the
But I
perfect match.
but I really like that you're never really sure
Yes.
who she's gonna choose, if she's gonna choose anybody.
But it's the brilliant
Um,
conflict of her
yeah,
character. Like
because it's
that's
like,
kind of what the movie is to me. It's
yeah,
her
do I
conflict.
do I go with like essentially financial comfort, and I'm
Mm,
with someone who like is
mm.
gonna treat me
Yeah,
perfectly.
give me the life that I kind of want without me
Or
having to live it.
do I go with a sense of I'm like, do I go with a sense of like emotional comfort because
Yeah,
I know that Dakota,
instability, but
even though
emotional comfort.
Dakota
Yeah,
Johnson and Chris Evans have such a back and forth and quite fiery, it's like
yeah,
you kind of only have that fire with someone when you really give a shit about them.
totally. Yeah, yeah,
Um, and one of the other things that I really, really loved was like, it's probably more subliminal, and I don't think a lot of like it'll go over a lot of people's heads, but like I think as film people,
Mm.
the way that this is shot and the
Oh,
way that she frames certain things,
so
like
good.
when Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal sort of first talk, the camera's going back and forth
Hmm.
because it's still trying to figure out, do these people trust each other?
Yep, yep,
When they're on their dates, they're in the same frame because they're on the same
same. Yeah,
page.
same level. Yeah.
But there's always things in the background that are happening to make you kind of
Mm.
look.
Yeah.
And then when it's Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson in a scene together and it's them together, the background is quite still because
Yes.
it's like showing. So I'm like,
There's a
these little
calmness.
things
Yeah.
that just sort of show you
Oh, she's a brilliant director
yeah,
too. Yeah.
and it shows
Shot
you where
on
Dakota Johnson's mind is
mind
as
is
well. Yeah,
shot on 35 millimeter film as
yeah.
well, so it looks
So
stunning.
like, it's a beautiful looking film. I think like we both we both recommend this,
Yeah, totally.
but
Yeah, yeah.
I think audiences need to be aware that this is
I
not a
think
romantic comedy.
I think go into it knowing it's 2 hours of very substance filled
Yeah.
dialogue scenes. There's
Yes.
no mass apart from like it's kind of elevates towards it a little bit at the end with like a climax of the film, I guess. But
Mm,
leading up to that, it's very much so just conversations and very in depth and very great character work in those
yeah.
conversations and great performances as well. So
Yeah.
I think going into it knowing that you're not going to get this rom com hijinks, you're not going to get these, these silly moments, which we do. This is why we love the rom com genre because we
Yeah.
get this like fantasy feeling of what love is. But this is just a very modernly authentic portrayal of like I said, the conflict of the film is love an algorithm or a feeling? Like
Yeah.
that's are we checking boxes or are we actually chasing something? And that's
Yeah.
really well done. So
Yeah. And then there's as Nick alluded to, there is a moment with Pedro Pascal that is probably the most comedically inclined because
yes,
it's a
yeah.
really nice payoff
To
for
something that comes up
to other
earlier. Yeah.
things. But even that scene is still treated
With
quite
sincerity. Yeah.
organically with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sincerity and really showing, and it really shows him being quite vulnerable, and it
Yes.
shows Dakota Johnson going, I completely understand
Yeah, there's no yeah.
why you did this.
Yeah.
We won't say what it is because it gives away quite a nice
But it is
joke.
great. It is great, yeah. Good
But
payoff.
yeah, this film doesn't have it. This isn't consistent
Mm.
laughter.
No.
This is you watching it. Like in some ways, it reminds me of like Linklater's
Yeah.
War trilogy,
War trilogy, yeah.
because you've got these conversations that I think every audience member will be like, I've had a variation of that, or someone said like, yeah,
it just taps
will,
into something really authentic, which
Yeah.
I think is incredible. Also worth mentioning that Celine Song's married to Justin Koretsky, who
Yes.
is the writer of not just Queer, but Challenges as
Yeah.
well. And we're looking at Past Lives and Materialists and Challenges as like the triple feature about thruples, which I think is, if that's not a box set, it should be.
Right. Except the funny thing is like none of them really go where people
You
want
expect-
them to.
No, Challenges gets the closest with the bonus.
Challenges
arc, which
gets
is
the
one of the best-
closest.
one of the funniest things I've seen.
I think a lot of people would like if Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal,
Yeah.
did something.
Yeah.
But
not that film though.
No, that's a different film.
That is a different film. But yeah, definitely we recommend Materialists. I think it's absolutely
Yes.
worth checking out. Great date night movie, but maybe not if your relationship's on the rocks. Perhaps. Same with Past Lives.
I'd say it. Don't go see Materialists if your relationship's on the rocks, and don't go see Materialists if it's like a first date because it might put on a lot of pressure. I think go when you're like
Marriage is a business deal.
You've been together for a few years. You're like solid in your foundation.
Yes.
And you go and you just go, oh, okay, yeah.
But that was The Materialist, which brings us to our final film of the episode, How to Train Your Dragon. But before we get into the review, let's preface the review with a little conversation about the current state of live action remakes. So this is obviously, for those who don't know, How to Train Your Dragon is a live action remake of 2010 animated film, which went on to be a trilogy, a very well regarded trilogy, one of my favorite animated trilogies of all time. This is DreamWorks' first foray into a live
Mm.
action remake adaptation, something that Disney have been doing since what, Cinderella in like 2014. It was probably like one of their
Yeah,
first
it's been
ones
about that. Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
So they're a decade into it with very mixed results. You get
Mm.
things like the Lion King remake, which was as soulless as could be, but still made $1 billion at the box office. But then you get the critical acclaim ones like Cinderella, which
Mm.
did really, really well. You had all the controversy with Snow White this year, which was probably less about the film itself,
Yeah.
but still people will make those comparisons. It didn't perform amazing at the box office,
Ew.
but the attribution to that is not necessarily because it was a live action remake. It was a lot of
No.
other things happening through there,
Yeah.
but people will still make that comparison through there. What what are your general thoughts around the live action remake from 2014 to now? Like, how
Yeah.
has it changed? Has it what's the go?
So it was funny. So I did a an article about this a couple years ago. I think it was during like the COVID era, um, where I spoke more about just remakes in general and
Sure.
how people's response to them can sometimes be a bit much. Like when people
Totally. Yep.
say that a remake of something ruins their childhood, I'm like, it doesn't.
No,
You're
because
giving that film too much power.
yeah,
Remaking something doesn't change the original in
no,
any way.
no, because you
Um,
still have that
you
film.
still have the
It's still
original,
there. Yeah.
and you don't have to go see the remake.
Yeah,
Like,
no one's forcing you to.
um, so I think when it comes to like we'll go with like the animated remakes, the Disney remakes,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, yes, there's been some, there have been some that are good, there have been some that are bad. I have never been against remaking them.
Sure.
Like, if there's like when you see something like Lion King, you just go, what's the point?
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
But I was never like against it.
No,
But
because it also
when
made
you,
$1 billion at the box office, keeping cinemas alive and healthy.
yeah, but
You know?
when you see the outcome of The Lion King, you sort of think this is where you don't need a live action remake. But I think Cinderella was a really great example of how to do it.
Yep.
Snow White, like, yeah, that film wasn't great. It wasn't the fucking abomination that everyone
No,
kind of made it
no.
out to
It just
be.
was. It was
It
fine.
was
It was
just,
just
yeah,
a
Rachel
fine
Ziegler is actually really great in
best
Snow
part of the
White.
film.
She's the
Best
whole
part of the
reason
film.
it works.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you had like I think like the Jungle Book did a really good
And I
job
really liked the Jungle Book.
of
Yeah, yeah.
remaking. I think Lilo and Stitch
Yep.
was,
Agreed.
I
And
that's
that's
caused
also on its way to make $1 billion.
that's
So
caused a whole lot of controversy because it changed the ending and it took out characters. But then it brings up that conversation of like, okay, if a film remakes an animated original
mm,
and does it beat for beat, you criticize it because it doesn't change.
yeah,
If they change something, you criticize it because it changed something. So you're like,
there's
what do you
a
like?
it's a
This is
lose lose, right? Yeah.
where you insert Ryan Gosling going, what do you want? So, like, personally, the remakes that I have liked more so have been the stuff like Maleficent and Cruella
Which are
because
expansions
they're
of yeah,
expansions.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
they're still, I guess, in some ways they're remakes, but like
I know what you mean though. Yeah,
they're taking a character and doing it. I
agreed.
like when they do things like that. It also helps that they get like Angelina Jolie and Emma Stone, who are
Yep.
incredible in those movies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I won't ever be like, oh, I'm never going to see that remake, or I'm so angry they're remaking it. Even films that I hold very dear to me that will a live action that might get remade, like it's just the way of
Yeah,
the world. I think we've also got to remember that there are some kids that haven't seen these films, and this is their introduction to it,
yeah,
and like we shouldn't take that away either. Like, like The
totally.
Little
Yeah,
Mermaid brought up a whole lot of stuff, and like that remake was mixed.
yeah,
Like it did some things well, it did some things not as great. But I think we've also got to remember Halle Bailey being Ariel made so many young girls of color feel really, really seen.
yeah,
And again, she's
totally.
incredible in The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
Yeah,
like, I think we've just got to kind of almost remove our own emotion and look at it
from
and
it
go,
all. Yeah,
what is this film doing for young kids now?
Yes.
And it's like we had it as a kid,
Mm.
and I think kids don't care if things are being remade.
Yeah.
Like
No,
it's it's
they don't give a
it's the
shit.
adult
I
mentality
wasn't
of
thinking
like,
about that when I was a kid. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like if I was a kid and saw like, I'm trying to think of, say like, The Lion King from 1994. Say that was
Yeah.
a remake of something.
Yeah.
Kids don't know.
No, they
Kids
don't
don't
care.
care.
They don't care.
Like a 10-year-old's not going to be like, well, now they've ruined this
Yeah.
movie from this, it's nothing like that.
No.
So
And
I think,
that's who these remakes are targeted to, right?
yeah, they're
A new
targeted for
generation.
a new generation. And I think that's what we've got to remember.
Yeah.
And yeah, whenever someone says it's ruining the original, I'm like, it's not.
It's not.
Like
No.
you're giving it that ability, and you don't have to give it that
Agreed.
ability. Yeah.
100% agreed.
Maybe they're not as bad as we think they are.
In case you forgot, our parents' war is about to become ours. Figure out which side you're on.
They've killed hundreds of us!
And we've killed thousands of them!
Well, let's go into the review for How to Train Your Dragon live action then, because that's a good segue. Because I think, like you said before, some remakes just follow beat for beat and people don't love that. Yet the initial reaction to the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake from reviews has praised it for being so authentic to the original, faithful to the original. Because I do believe that this is a pretty carbon cut copy of the 2010 animated original. I liked it. I love the original. I love the animated film. But it's one of those ones where I go to what you said. I think this is a good way to introduce a new generation to How to Train Your Dragon. I think that is majority of the purpose it serves.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah.
What did you think, mate?
It's pretty much the same. I really enjoyed watching this because it's showing you what that world is like in live action, and I think it looks great. It looks like it's actually properly filmed, like on the Isle of Berk or whatever it is. Like the dragons all look like Toothless is such a beautiful creation. Like Mason Thames is really good. Nico Parker is really good. Gerard Butler back is really fun. Nick Frost doesn't do like a Craig Ferguson impersonation, so he makes the character his own.
Yeah.
It's a fun adventure film for the family, and I guess it's just going to live in that space of the original fans maybe not particularly liking it because it is so faithful to the plot, almost to its own detriment. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's introducing the story to a whole new generation, and it does it really well. Like it doesn't change it too much. So
not at all.
This one's really tricky because the original is so great, and because this is made so faithfully, this is like really, really well done.
Yeah.
So it's like it's hard to say it's a bad film because on its own, it's a great adventure film.
It does really well. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But it's like it's hard to for a lot of audiences. It's going to be hard to separate it from what we know.
Totally.
I do think Dean DeBlois being helming it is a good thing because it shows like how protective he is of it. And he. He did sort of speak about how this gives them the opportunity to kind of do some of the things that they didn't get to do with how they want certain things to be shown and everything like that. It changes things up a little bit,
yeah,
but not enough to like.
No, it's really like emotionally beat for beat the same.
Yeah,
like it's the exact same hiccups journey had from wanting to become a dragon killing Viking to becoming a dragon loving Viking, I guess you could say, and sort of stuff. Like it's very much similar to the original.
I guess it'll just be a case of like, because we know that they want to make the whole trilogy.
Yes.
Will it be we start the trilogy off quite faithful, we get the audience in, and then maybe 2 and 3 they change things up.
Change things up a little bit.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's their way of being like, look, we'll do this, and then, who knows?
Yeah.
It's really tough because it is such a well-made movie.
Yeah.
It's just very familiar to so many people. But
Yes.
again, I think if you're a parent and you're taking your kid to see this, I think kids are going to love
Love it.
this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So
It's a high energy,
yeah,
incredibly immersive adventure film.
yeah,
The CGI of the dragons is still
it's
quite like animated in the sense of
animated, but
stylistic,
yeah,
but the action is really cool.
yeah,
There's an intensity to it all. It has that humor. It has that heart to it.
yeah,
It really is a great story and a really
yeah,
fun movie.
yeah.
And I think having Dean DeBloy there to write and direct it again, someone who was obviously so close to the original film,
Mm,
having written and directed that as well, or co-directed that, I think was probably the best choice because his
mm.
whole thing was like, if someone's going to do it, I would rather them not mess it up, so I will, do that myself. And I
Yeah,
think,
and
yeah,
it's fair to have that mentality. So
totally, yeah,
it's just it's tricky,
mm,
as we said, because it is so good, but it is
yes,
so familiar.
it is
So
very familiar. Yeah,
if purists don't want to see it, okay,
yeah,
don't
that's
see
fine.
it, but don't shit on
No,
people that
because
want to see it or that like it
100%.
as well. Like,
Because when
yeah,
you were 10 years old when the first one came out, there's going to be a 10-year-old who sees this and loves it probably,
yeah.
and that's the thing, right? Like
Yeah. So
it serves
I
a
think that's the
purpose.
whole argument with remakes is remove yourself and put yourself in the shoes of a young kid who's seeing it for the
For the
first
first
time
time.
and how amazing you felt as a kid seeing the original for the first time. I think that's
Absolutely.
the best way to then go, okay, I can appreciate this remake.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some remakes, but then you've just got to go, it's still got to be a well-made movie.
It's still exactly
That's the
right. Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like, it's still got to be well made. Like,
Yeah.
you get something like Snow White where you go, okay, this isn't a great movie.
No.
But a lot of the criticisms for that, as we said, were not really directed at the movie
No,
itself.
no, exactly. Yeah.
And it's hard to have criticisms for this film aside from it being too familiar
Yeah, that's
because it is
pretty
so
much
well
it.
made.
My
Yeah.
my only other criticism was that I think it loses some of the magic that animation can give a story like
Mm,
this. I think because it is set in such a realistic like island off the coast of Scotland sort of
mm,
location, it feels a little bit too dull at times, whereas like the color and the vividness
mm,
of the animation really lent to the magic of the story of the original of the animated version. I don't think it loses all of its magic and whimsy
mm.
and wonder, but it just there is sort of a muted feeling to the realism of it at points that
Yeah.
I think is lesser than. But again, like I said, it's still the story and the performance is great. Like Mason Thames is a great Hiccup.
Yeah.
Parker's a great Astrid. We get Gerard Butler returning.
Mm,
Nick Frost is great in the film. Like everyone is really, really good as well. So it's not like
yeah.
we're losing that much
Yeah.
comparatively.
I think counterbalancing that with like losing some of the magic, I do think because you have actors
Mm,
that are closer to the ages of the characters,
totally.
I do think we get a bit more accessible emotion
I think so. Yeah,
from
yeah,
them.
totally. Yeah.
And that's not to take away like Jay Baruchel's voice work or America Ferrera's voice work as Hiccup and Astrid, but they were older than their characters, and
Mm,
I think Mason and Nico bring a certain like youthfulness and a certain vulnerability and a certain relatability for younger people because we get to see
yeah.
how they're feeling as opposed to just like voice work that can sometimes not
Yes.
always be mixed with the right emotion. But yeah, that's not taking away anything. But I think
No.
that helps this film
Mm,
in a way that the original didn't, I think. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And that's our thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon. If you want
Mm.
more thoughts or longer reviews for that, you can head to worldofscreens.com. I've done reviews for all three of the films. You can head to aureview.com to see Pete's reviews for those films. And that brings us to the end of another episode of World of Screens.
Almost.
Almost.
I
Oh, the blind ranking.
I'm gonna
Yes.
blind rank you,
Oh,
Nick.
shit. Okay. Let's go.
Okay.
I'm really bad at these.
5 romantic comedies.
Okay.
Okay. And you don't know what's
In
coming
support
next.
of the materialists
Yes.
coming out.
All right.
Yes, okay.
When Harry Met Sally.
I'll go number 2
Number
for that
2.
one. Yeah.
All right.
Because that is a great movie.
It is a great movie. You've Got Mail.
I'm happy for that to go to 5.
5?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
not one that I
No.
loved growing. I didn't watch it enough growing up. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 5.
I Love You, Man.
Ooh, 3.
Yeah?
3. Yeah, 3. Oh, fuck. I'm waiting for this.
Sleepless in Seattle.
4. Okay, so
4?
what's number 1? Shit.
This one, I was debating putting this one in because I know that you love it. So
Oh,
it's
so
probably going to
I've
go.
won. Yeah.
So it's probably going to go number 1. So it was Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
It is my favorite romantic
Yeah.
comedy of all time. I'm actually, you know what? I'm pretty happy with that ranking. So what's that?
It's a pretty good ranking.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, When Harry Met Sally, I Love You, Man, Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail.
You've Got Mail.
I think I'm happy with that.
That's a
I'm
good
very happy
ranking.
with that.
Yeah.
That's a very good ranking. What would
Yeah.
your ranking of those 5 be?
Of those, Forgetting Sarah Marshall 1.
Yep.
You've Got Mail 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I grew up on that movie.
Totally. Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally 3.
Hmm.
I Love You, Man 4.
Yep.
Sleepless in Seattle 5.
Yeah. That's not too, yeah, like there's one big change. That's about it. But I mean,
Yeah.
all great romantic.
All great
comedies
movies.
at the same time.
I was almost just going to choose a shitty one just so you had to put a number 1, but I was like, no, I won't do that.
I appreciate you staying true to yourself and
I'm just trying to think what a shitty rom-com would be. Like,
I
don't know.
dude, who knows? Who knows? Because they're all great in their own respective ways.
They
to be
are.
honest.
They are.
But that is another episode of the World of Screens podcast come to a close. Thank you for joining us. Next week on the show, Pete and I will be reviewing the highly anticipated 28 Years Later, while we'll also be looking back on 28 days and weeks later in a little retrospective review, and bringing you a review of the new Disney Pixar film, Elio. Speaking about animation, we've got animation back to back for that one. But in the meantime, head to worldofscreens.com for all the latest film, TV reviews and news and all that stuff. Pete, where can everyone find you?
Find me on the aureview.com, where I am just pumping out all things at the moment. We've had Sydney Film Festival, we've had Tribeca Film Festival. There's like a million movies opening each week. So you can check me out there. Rotten Tomatoes, GRAY. And Instagram and X at RatedPDG.
Thank you very much for joining again, Pete, and we will see you all next week on the World of Screens podcast.